right. I'm currently on the phone with Kelsey. She's another musician that reached out about the current interview sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the chance to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name's Kelsey Montanez. Thank you, Alex, for inviting me to do this today. This is super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining me. So with these interviews, I always kind of like to focus in on the artists themselves and kind of figure out how music entered into your life. So tell me about when you kind of first encountered music. What was the environment surrounding it? How did you begin to learn it? What about it really kind of connected with your personality?
Well, music has been a part of my life for as far as I can remember because my dad was a musician and he was in a rock band. And some of my earliest memories are going to his band practices, watching him write songs. We would just kind of jam out on guitar growing up. So it was always kind of just in my life. His bandmates had kids around my age that were also at band practice, which is funny because one of them is my best friend still to this day. So it's just, music was always around. My dad was really into music. We were always buying music. My parents were divorced, but my dad would pick me up on the weekends and we'd go to like Borders or Barnes and Nobles and I could pick a CD out. So that's kind of how I got started with it. And as I got older, he's started getting like recording equipment and kind of built like a little basement studio. And I started writing songs. And then in high school, I started really kind of taking it serious and writing consistently. And we started recording songs. And then I put a band together. And that started my kind of performance sector of it. And so it's just always been there. It kind of took off from there.
Sure. Let's back up just a little bit. You mentioned that once your dad kind of brought home the recording equipment was when you started writing songs. When you say started writing songs, do you mean like lyrically, or at that time had you picked an instrument to start playing? Can you give me just a little bit more detail about that?
So I guess it started first lyrically before I could I have recordings from when I was like 4 or 5. My dad would start strumming guitar and just, kind of like, start singing something, like, come up with lyrics, like write something. And so it was all just kind of stuff like that. And then I think I started just writing more lyrics as I got older, maybe around 10, 11. I started practicing singing a lot. And then I picked up a guitar probably around 12 and I started teaching myself guitar. And I would just like, look on YouTube and like find like chords, or I had like this book of guitar chords and I would just like flip through it and teach myself chords. And then I would start putting the lyrics that I wrote to the music and like coming up with melodies and things like that.
That's great. So you went into a little bit detail there about how you kind of self-taught your guitar. Did you participate in like the school curriculum for band at all, or did you do private lessons, or was it all kind of self-taught organically via YouTube videos and I assume like tablature and things like that?
Yeah, and it was mostly self-taught. I was I don't want to say isolated isn't the right word, but maybe solitary. Like I was always very creative. I would go and spend summers at my dad's house, and while he was at work, I would kind of just have the basement full of instruments to myself. And I was bored, which boredom is so incredibly important for creativity. And I tell people this all the time. If you want to consistently write and be creative, you have to let yourself get bored. And that's how it started with me. I was bored out of my mind. I was like in the suburbs on summer break, away from my friends. And there was just guitars hanging on the wall. And this is before like social media and like the internet, like, I didn't have access to any of that. So I would just sit there and I started picking up a guitar. There was a book of chords laying around. I just kind of would open it up to a random page and figure out how to get my fingers to match the chord placements. And it just kind of started like that. I never had lessons. There was never any like formality behind it. I wasn't really in like school programs. It was just literally born out of like boredom and it turned into creativity.
That's great. So very very self guided.
Hmm.
So tell me about how that progressed. So at some point you got to the point where you started writing your own stuff and recording your own stuff. Tell me about that process to kind of determine the type of stuff that you wanted to write, and then how you used kind of that boredom influence, quote unquote, to inform what you wanted to write.
Um, I think it started like my dad would make these little beats and loops and like, or he would just loop like guitar chords and would record it and would say like, oh, just like write some lyrics. I don't really know. I don't remember exactly how I started writing lyrics or how they would come to me. But it was just, I don't think when you're that age, you really question it either. You just kind of start, your, your dad tells you to write some lyrics and you write some stuff down and you sing. But I think I was probably just listening to a lot of music. Like at that time, it was all just, like, I don't know. Probably like Spice Girls and just like a lot of like, just, pop from like the early 2000s and like late 90s and stuff. And I think I was trying to mimic some of those melodies. And once I picked up guitar, I started to want to create my own loops, my own chords, my own melodies. And so it kind of just morphed into that. And then I would start with maybe like, once I learned like a handful of chords, I would just, put them in an order that I liked. And I would start making melodies. And just, I don't know. I still can't really explain how lyrics and melodies come to me. It's just something that kind of just happens, there's just a rhythm that you get into melodically, depending on whatever space you're in, whatever you're thinking about, like whatever you've recently read or whatever music you're listening to. And it kind of just, comes out. I don't know if it's just some kind of divine spark, but that's how it started. And honestly, my process is probably still the same as when I was like 12.
It reminds me of a story way back when, and I'll try to keep this short. A guy that I was talking to was into music. He was very big in the local music scene. I asked him how he goes about writing vocals and lyrics, and he says, "I don't know, I just feel it." And I was like, okay. So that kind of reminded me of that. So tell me about what kind of the ambition was there when you started recording this stuff? Did you want to do like the solo singer-songwriter thing, or did you kind of envision a larger, full contemporary rock band kind of lineup? Give me a bit about what your vision for your artistry was.
Um, hmm. When I was a kid, I think all kids think that they want to be this big pop star. Like I thought I wanted to like be this like singer pop star. And as I got older, it turned more into an introspective, like creative process. It was a little bit more about, I don't know, maybe channeling through some of that like teen angst. And it's evolved through the years, I think. And I think any creative practice does. I really don't have like a specific, huge, lofty like aim with it. I think it's just a part of my life. It's what I do. It's what I've always done. Of course, I would love, success is great. I would love people to resonate with my music. I love building moments of connection. I love building community. But that's, sometimes I think that's as far as I let my mind go with it. I just want to create great music. I want to work with inspiring and inspired people. And it's taken me some awesome places. I've played some great shows. I've made some awesome music with some super talented musicians. And if I could just keep fanning that flame in whatever way makes sense or whatever way feels inspired, that's enough for me.
Sure. Well, that's a great segue to kind of talk about where you're at right now. Tell me about, how far you've come. What are you doing right now? Are you recording music? Are you out playing shows? What does the future hold for you?
Yeah, so I am 2 songs away from wrapping up an album, and I've been working at it for a couple years now, and we've just kind of slowly been doing it song by song, releasing it song by song. It was the first album, well, really my first like full length album ever, but I had taken a long hiatus from music. And so now we're finally wrapping up this album, which is super exciting. and I've already written a second album. And so I just this last year, I've been writing a whole bunch, and I'm kind of trying to figure it out. I want to finish this album, get it out there. I'm not sure if because I'm writing so much and because I'm on this sort of creative high, I don't know if I want to just dive right into album two and just keep pinning down the songs and creating music, or if I want to slow down and maybe do a little mini tour or start like performing these songs more, because a lot of them I haven't even performed live. So yeah, I think right now I'm just going to write and keep recording and try to get all these ideas down. And I think once I finish these two albums, I'll kind of know more about what I want to do. If I want to start touring, if I want to, I don't know. There's just so much that can be done, so much that I want to do, but it starts with the ideas. It starts with, putting these ideas into concrete terms and releasing them.
Sure, absolutely. So you mentioned that with the recordings that you're doing, you are putting stuff out there, and you're a couple songs away from completing an album that you're currently working on. I imagine that you're in some sort of release cadence. Are you the type of person that prefers like doing a full album release, or do you also do like the monthly digital release kind of thing? Or how does that kind of work out for what you envision for, your release cadence?
So the way I've done it so far, I've released it one song at a time. And I believe I've released 8 so far. And I think it works for a couple different reasons. When I first went into it, I was of the mentality of I'm going to create an album, this like cohesive body of work, and release it. But the way that it shaped out and how much time and care the team that I've been working with put into each song, and also the rate at which I was writing. So when I first started the album, I didn't have as many ideas fleshed out as I do now. But I think it was also really useful because, everything is the algorithm and, just constantly needing content to post. And so I think doing it one at a time helped me in a couple different areas. It helped me to constantly have stuff to release and to share on a more consistent schedule. Because if you work for a year on an album and release it in one day, it's done. Like you put it out there, it's done. It's hard to kind of keep the movement, like just keep it going. And so it's kind of helped me to slowly build momentum as I figured out what I was doing. And also as the ideas came, because I didn't have the full album done. So it's kind of a weird album in the sense that I wrote it and recorded it and released it in the span of, I don't know, I think it's like 2.5 years now. So and so much in my life changed in that couple of years that like, it's not exactly cohesive. Like there's like love songs, there's breakup songs, there's like energetic rock songs. There's like, it's just kind of all over the place. Just because it took so much time and so much change, like while I was writing it. But I actually like the process of releasing it one at a time, because I think it gives each song a special significance. It gives the audience time to like warm up to each one, because sometimes it's a lot especially when you're a smaller artist, to ask people to set aside 45 minutes or an hour and to really internalize the entire album. So if you give it to them in little bits, I think it helps people kind of understand who you are and what you're doing, and you can generate more momentum or, reviews and things like that it's like a slow burn, I guess you could call it.
Sure. And it kind of encapsulates a moment in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So tell me a bit about what has happened to you throughout your life that kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you focused on continuing to write and release music.
It's interesting because I think the music actually keeps me motivated. I think that's what keeps me alive and excited for life. It's challenging. It's rewarding. I'm always trying to grow. I'm always trying to be better. And I think it's, having that as kind of like a musical backdrop to my life really pushes me in other areas of my life to grow, to be a better person, to face a lot of fears. I want to do well. It kind of forces me to get out of the house, connect with people, learn from people. So I think really just what keeps me going is just this idea of wanting to explore creativity and wanting to see what I'm capable of and connecting with other creatives, other musicians. Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfectly valid response. That's great. So, where can people find the stuff that you're releasing and follow along and come see the shows that you're doing?
It's pretty much anywhere you will find music. So Spotify, iTunes, Apple, YouTube, wherever you listen to your music, I will probably be there. You can also find me on Instagram. I mostly post on there. Right as I started a TikTok, I finally got on TikTok, and now there's like rumors that it might shut down. And so I think for now I'll just stick mostly with Instagram. And my handle is Kelsey Montanez, my name and underscore. That's it.
All right, perfect. I'll make sure that gets tagged and everything too. So I always like to give the person I'm interviewing the opportunity to put out their last word. So what's a message that you have that you want to share with people?
Something I've been thinking a lot about lately is the ripple effect. So every small action, it has a larger effect than you realize. So any act of kindness, any, energetic output that you put out there, even if it's something small, like opening the door for somebody, giving eye contact, strangers saying thank you, just, those small things, you have no idea how much it can impact the overall mood of somebody's day and how they will carry that forward. And so you do have more power than you realize.